Good. Well, welcome everyone. What we're going to do tonight is Birgit and I, as you saw in the email, are going to try and do a live photo shoot in our respective homes, and then we'll go through the winners of Smoke and a little bit on coming up. I also want to make a suggestion to you all on the project vote idea that came up at a discussion with the committee. So just want to spend a few minutes doing that, but we'll do that at some stage. Perhaps we'll do that in between your session, Birgit, and mine. We'll see how that goes. So we're going to do a tabletop photo shoot. I'm going to leave the microphones open, so don't eat any noisy food or anything while you're on, otherwise you're going now. We're by all means stop and ask questions as we go. That's the whole point of tonight. We're going to try as much as possible as if we were in the room all together doing a live desktop photo shoot. So the best way we can do that is leave the mics open and people shout up, chip in, give suggestions, ask questions, do whatever you want to do. And if you are going to do a shoot along with us, as Paul is going to attempt, then great. So without further ado, I am going to say, if you are going to join in, this is what I sent in the email. A 50mm lens or thereabouts will get you roughly the right distance, but you will need to be in manual mode because you need to grasp control of the camera. Tripod is kind of essential because of the exposure times, and also you ain't got enough hands if you're trying to light candles and blow them out and all that kind of stuff. And a continuous light source. So certainly Birgit's going to be using her lights that she uses for her studio, but I'm using the cheap rusty old thing from the garage. So the idea here is use what's available rather than any specialist equipment. The tripod and the camera is probably the only specialist equipment, that you need. Okay, well look, let me stop sharing, stop rabbiting, and Birgit, if you want to take over the screen, that's
see if everything, the technical bit works first of all. So if I go to share screen, and then I click on my thingy and press share, can you still see me?
Yeah.
So now, if I do this, can you still see me?
Yeah.
Okay, I think we can start then. So, yes, well, I think, first of all, I'd just like to say that I really think now that lockdown's gone on far enough, because I think Ray's just got to the point where he's really scraping the barrel because you've got me tonight. And yes, he spent all this time telling you about how we're going to do a live shoot. Well, I've got news for you. You're getting a lecture. And it's called Chiaroscuro, Between Light and Dark. No, I'm just kidding. This is a really quick one, just to kind of just talk you through the style of photography that I'm going to be working on tonight and where it comes from, and a little bit of theory behind it. It's all very gentle. So if I press that, oh yeah, right. Can you see that? Or I don't know, little people smaller if you need to. So the dictionary describes chiaroscuro as the treatment of light and shade in drawing and painting, an effect of contrasted light and shadow. You did very well there because I can only see half of it. So, but light and shadow is something that we can also apply to photography. So the best examples of this can be found in the Dutch masters painting, the painters like Vermeer, who did Girl in the Pearl Earring, and Caravaggio. But as I just said before, we can also apply the style to photography. So I think I want you to just think about, photography is all about light, isn't it? If you haven't got light, you can't do a photograph. But also shadow plays a really important part in photography, because without shadow, you don't have form and you don't have shape. Now I need to do something here. I need to just reduce that a little bit. just taking my thumbnails down because I can't quite see my screen otherwise. I have to jump in and out of that. Right, so this is Vermeer a painting, not a photograph, and it's of a young girl, as you can see, and you've got a window. Now the window to the left of the screen is admitting all the light into that scene, and the light's it's pouring onto her face and the front of her gown. And if you see the apples on the bed, and how the left-hand side of the apples are lit, and how the shadows are occupying the right-hand side of the apples and her clothing, you'll see how the old masters were able to get texture and essentially a body. You know, it's realistic, and it's realistic because light and shadow work together, and that's how you get shape. So if you look also at the direction of the light, it's coming from the left. And an interesting fact actually is, of course, the Dutch masters, European painters, in this part of the world, when we read left to right. So the eye is trained to move from the left to the right. So when you are using light from the side, it works better if you do it on the left-hand side. And if I use it, I tend to do it left. I can't get my head around light coming in from the right so well. And the other thing to note is that there is only one source of light. The source of light is the window. There's not any light coming from above. There's not any light coming from a different direction, because if you have light coming from more than one direction, you lose your shadows. And if you lose your shadows, you lose the whole form of the picture you're trying to create. This is another old painting, and note it's obviously predominantly food. The light is again coming from the left, and you can see the lid of that jar, how it's shadowed on the right hand side, and how that lemon has got all that peel dangling down. I love dangly peel, you'll find out about that in a moment. And particularly like in food photography, you'll find that there's two main directions from which you'll get your light source. And it tends to be the side or the back, or about 10 o'clock between the back and the side. You won't have it from the front, because if you light your food from the front, all the shadows will get washed away and you'll just have a flat subject. And the same problem arises if you use a skylight or something and you have your light coming down from the ceiling, you will lose all your shadows. So your food and your dish will look really flat and uninteresting. This is my studio where I am now, and you'll see from there, see that table on the right hand side, that's pretty much where I'm sitting now. And that's just a shot I was playing with the other day, was a glass of milk. And you'll see I've got this massive south-facing window. And you can see how I use the black cloth there to cut the light out, which I know Ray's going to talk about that, how you can get light on your black backdrop and then it messes it up because it isn't black anymore. And then I've had to diffuse the light with that net curtain there, just to tone it down a little bit, because this actually was last weekend and it was a really sunny day. It must have been, I think it was Saturday. And even in the winter, you can get really strong light. And you'll just see that shaft of light going across the table in front of the milk. And that really is what I wanted to capture in a certain position to light the picture, but everywhere around it, you don't want so much light. So that's a photograph I took at that table. So I was behind the table. The picture on the right, get my little arrow. So that picture on the right is before I edited it, and the one on the left is the edited picture. So obviously I've cropped it because everything looks that bit closer, doesn't it? And it's mainly cropped from the top, I think, because I've lost that scraggy neck. And yeah, and I think I might have the camera settings. I'll have a look in a minute, see if it's on the next slide. Hang on, can't remember. Navigator, yes I have, yeah. Yeah, I'll go through the camera settings with you in a minute as to the purpose of why I chose the camera settings I chose. So thinking back to chiaroscuro and those old masters with the light. So you see that the shadows here are coming away from the window. So you've got nice shadows, but they're not overwhelming. And then because I've got the black cloth behind me and it reflects black, it gives you that dark background. It's all a matter of taste. I mean, it's either your thing, it isn't, it just happens to be my thing. But you also see there, this had spent a little bit of time. Actually, I don't know, I don't think I did it in Photoshop, but you see how you can see my blue jeans there. And then in the finished one there, I think I used the brush in Lightroom to get rid of that. Actually, I don't think that one went to Photoshop. Anyway, so if I go back to play, and then if you look at the camera settings here, so let's escape again because I've got my little arrow. So this was taken with my 35mm Sigma art lens, which I use about 80% of the time with my photography. It's really a good lens for doing the food photography. And then I like to photograph at 100 ISO if I can, because it's nice, and you agree, it's a nice, crisp, sharp setting. So that's the last thing I'll adjust if I've got a light problem. Exposure 1 in 60 is a nice rounded, if you've got good light, you could usually be about 160, 140, 150. And then I've got my f-stop is 6.3, which means that the depth of field is quite deep. If I wanted to put more light in, I'd go down on the numbers, but then it makes your picture much shallower. And if we go back,
Birgit, you're shooting in aperture priority as well.
Yes, there I was. That's a very, yeah. There I tended to. I've gone off that. I actually shoot fully manual now, but I hadn't quite got to that point here. So I tended to do aperture so that I didn't have to think about the shutter speed. So I was still on the learning curve there, and I still am. So yeah, so I tended to work on my f-stop and yeah, and let the shutter speed do what I wanted, really.
And I think it's important to say that you don't have to get it right first time. This is all about experimenting until you find something that works for you.
Yeah, I'm certainly, I've only just, started to understand it, to be honest. It's taken a long time. I've gone back, but I can't remember why now. Oh yes, the depth of field, yeah. So I wanted to show you how how virtually everything is in focus. I think that hand might be just slightly out, but with 6.3, pretty much the whole picture there is in focus. And then here's that famous picture. So this is a portrait, and I think chiaroscuro, which as the time goes on, I can pronounce it less and less because it's really hard to get your tongue around, works really well with portraiture. So I don't know much about portraiture shooting, but I know that people use reflectors. I've seen them used outside actually. So I mean, I don't know whether that's to bounce more light, so the natural light gives you more appearance of more shadow. I don't know, but this one again, it's you've got your light from the left, you've got that nice shadow at the side of her face and her back and her nose. All looks very natural. And then that's kind of a sort of inspiration. There's Esme, who some of you know, and bless her, there was no way I was getting her. She was going to brush her hair for this photograph. Change into anything resembling a vintage item of clothing. But I actually won a competition with this photograph, and mostly because of the theme, because I managed to capture the theme that they were looking for. But it's slightly desaturated and yeah, messy hair, but can you see in her face how the light is, and she's just sat at this table here with that window, how the light's kind of softly falling across her face, and it's given that lots of form and shape. And oh yeah, that's one of me. Oh, this one definitely has been to Photoshop. So this is me making a meringue. And so where you can see there where so I've cropped it a bit. So the one on the left again is the finished picture, and the one on the right was how it was when it was originally shot. So what I did was I took the blue down a bit in the dress to make it darker, and then I've played with clarity quite a lot on that meringue. It's real egg white, and yeah, and then I've probably played in tones and just increased the shadows, but I don't want it to look false or anything. So there's not a lot of editing going on here. And then I had to take it into Photoshop because of the meringue just gets everywhere. Esme was laughing. I set it all up, and Esme actually pressed the shutters for me. And I had meringue on the dress and everything. I'm just like so messy. And this one I did it fully manual. It's one of my most recent shots, and I don't think if I hadn't done this in manual, I don't think I'd have succeeded in getting this. So as you can see, this is an old vintage garden sort of sieve that I had knocking about, and I filled it with flour, and then I'm essentially banging the side of it, and sort of there is movement there in the hand, but it's sort of like I tap it and then held the hand still, but then the knock was what made the flour fall. But I gave it a hard knock so I get the zigzag out of it, so it's more shape. And then but I don't think the camera on its own would have worked out what I wanted from it. So actually, so if we go to, oh yeah, and the one on the right again, that's unedited. So there's not a lot of difference in it. Same place as, my usual spot. So all I've done is take the shadows down a bit. So there's a lot more shadow on the sieve, a bit more clarity, probably a vignette. I do use vignette a little bit. And yeah, just up the shadows really. And then I've either taken this out on Photoshop or I've cropped it, because this is one of Esme's aprons and it says Ascot Catering on it or something. Yeah, and then the next one shows my settings. So again, I've got my 35mm. So where I would normally have an ISO of 100, I've had to go to 400, but that's because I had to up the speed. So of course, if your camera shutter speed is faster, it lets in less light. So I've had to compensate. So my f-stop's gone down to open up the eye, the aperture, just to let a bit more light, which gives me a shallower depth of field. But because everything was pretty much close together, it didn't give me any blur, really. And then, yeah, and then I had to increase the ISO because that gives you a bit more light as well, which you probably know more better than me. And so I hope that makes sense. And then that's something to try at home. Grapes are very, very forgiving subjects, and they love the light. And that one's just like grapes in a bowl, spray them with a bit of water, and then you can just see how that light's falling across the little pile of grapes on the right and catching all those beads of moisture. I might have taken that with my Canon 100 macro. I don't honestly know because I wasn't able to quickly. I did that quite a while ago, so I couldn't find the original to check. And that, I think, everything. I think you can breathe a sigh of relief because it's over. Yeah. So I'll shut that off.
Very good. Very good.
And, yeah.
Very good.
You're too kind. You're too kind.
That's good.
Very good.
Listen.
You seem to have a nice little top there, that table and the other.
Yeah, the table. Have you ever been to Tadley Reclamation Yard?
No.
I've got it up there. And I mean, when I have friends round, or in the days that when you could have friends round, it's a bit of a distant memory now, isn't it? We've kind of like turned it around and put it towards the doors here, and I've got like a little pizza oven outside, and it's brilliant. It's really good entertaining space.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I've got a little table as well, and then sometimes if I'm doing a flat lay, let me just grab I'll go for little walkies. So when I've only lived here, I knew this, I've known this house donkey's years, but I only moved here just over a year ago. And the people who lived here before had, this is down the bottom of the garden, but it was kind of like a gym. So right in that corner, I don't know, trying to see what you can see. See that arm there, that black arm, the horizontal bar at the top? That's what I use for like to put the camera on to shoot down, so I can get what's called a flat lay. And then the chairs, I'll quite often put a board on, so I can get it to sort of knee height, and then that will take a nice photograph with the camera then. But the advantage of the arm is I can also use it to photograph on the table as a flat lay, and then I can have a bit of the body in it as well. But there's lots of options I can do on a table, on a lower table, on the floor if I want. I don't tend to do that now. And yeah, between the chairs.
Got a nice space for it.
Yeah, no, I've got a brilliant space. I'm really lucky actually that they built this, you know, lurking around. But I used to live next door, so I moved back down here in Park Lane, like I said, about a year ago. Right, so my setup now, I don't know. I'm going to experiment here with the computer a minute and see what you can see before I decide where I'm going to put it. So I've got my popcorn. I don't know if anybody's noticed my popcorn in a bowl. It's just there.
Yeah.
My camera is here. You can see that, can't you?
Yeah.
And then my light is just here by the window. So if I leave the computer here for a minute, do you think you'll probably be able to see most of what's going on, won't you?
Yeah, do you want to go down and left a little bit?
Down, left.
And the other way.
The other left.
That's good.
The other
Yeah.
day.
That was right to me, you see. All right, okay, so now I've set my camera up, right, and I know the settings are wrong on it, so I'm going to tell you what the settings are, okay, and then I'm going to put them, see if we can get this popcorn so it's not pitch dark. Is Paul ready to have a little go with his? Is he going to compare notes with me?
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. Okay, all right. So I'm going to turn my light on now. So it's fairly powerful. It's 100 something or others. 100 watts. Does that mean anything to anybody?
Yeah.
So here I am. So I'm going to look. So my camera settings. I'm going to turn it on. So I've got speed at 120, f-stop at 6.3, and the ISO at 200. Now I know I took a shot with that earlier, and I know that's too dark. So my first change I would make is on the shutter speed. So I'm going to go down. Let's try it. So I'm going to go down to 115 and take a shot with that. Does anybody think that's enough, or what do you think?
Not enough.
Not enough. You're right. Not enough. Change it. Right. And okay. So I can go down a little bit more with that. I can slow it down a bit because it's all nice. Everything's nice and stable. I've got no wobble, so I can really. We're on the tripod. You can go pretty slow, can't you? So I'll take that one. So that's quite a bit better. It's not quite there yet. So I think I'll probably my camera's quite close to the popcorn, so I think I'll take my f-stop down a bit to 4.5. How are you doing, Paul?
Very different. ISO 100, f22, and 8 seconds.
Ooh.
Oh, your lights, yeah, yours is looking.
8 seconds. Wow.
Why f22?
That's for very bright light.
I press the button.
Are you manual?
See if you can get
Manual.
Have you got the camera in manual mode?
Got the camera on manual.
see if you can get the focus down on the plant a bit more then.
And
Are you very far away?
that's come out good.
What lens you on?
I don't know, the thing in front of the camera.
And shoot.
Black one.
Okay then.
It's black.
The light.
I'm trying to get a sense for your depth of field, because if
Yeah.
you need f22 to get a depth of field, then one way of doing that is to use a shorter lens. If you can't.
Oh, I think it looks stunning. I mean, I might enter. That's
Yeah,
smooth.
experiment a bit then, because I think it's probably a bit.
Is this the plant pot we're looking at?
It is indeed.
Okay.
Yeah. I
If
think
you're
it's a
getting the result
completely
you want, then that's good.
So what you so you got F22. What's the rest of it? What?
8
I was
seconds.
100 seconds. If I let me bring the camera to the back of my camera, and you can see what I've ended up with, perhaps.
Yeah. It's hard to do this, isn't it?
But
That's
no.
why we're doing it, just for fun.
Mm.
If it was easy, it wouldn't be fun, would it?
You should try an image at f11, Paul.
Sorry.
You should try an image at f11, because with most lenses, once you go past f11, you start to get diffraction, and it actually makes the image softer.
Now,
Okay.
I can see on that image that your background is clearly defined and in focus. And if you're trying to get the background minimized so that it's not distracting from the subject, then one way to help you would be to use a lower F setting so that you bring the depth of field back, so that the background is out of focus.
His plant's quite close to that backdrop though. He maybe want
Yeah, bring
to forward
the
a bit.
plant forward a little bit from the backdrop.
It'll all fall over. It'll split.
Is it a short table?
Okay.
It's a chair.
Oh, a chair.
Sit
Yeah.
on the chair.
Okay. Well,
And the light, is that coming in at
Yeah.
the side, Paul?
It's coming in about 2022 on the clock.
front, yeah.
Okay.
Is there room to pull it to the side a bit more?
If you can avoid the light shining on the background, that will help to minimize the background.
Kill the light a little bit.
Yeah.
On my dual
You can
torch.
probably rescue most of that in editing.
Yeah, you can drag it back. in
You
editing.
want to save yourself too much work.
Yeah. I mean, don't ruin your setup, Paul. We're just
Oh no,
making suggestions.
don't damage anything. Right, I'll go back to mine a sec. So where was I? I quite like that because I don't want mine too bright. All right, I'm just going to. So I've got mine where I want it to be, I think. So I won't be able to show you till I edit it. It's probably not straight. Nothing I shoot's ever straight. I think I've got one eye lower than the other one.
Oh, we're straight now.
There we go.
I actually got a spirit level on my tripod to make sure my camera was level. How sad am I?
Oh, you've got one on your camera.
Just very-
I'm going to say, and you got one on your camera.
You can get a little bubble to put on the camera.
Well, I've got a bubble on the tripod, and I put a spirit level on the head of the tripod. So
Oh,
I
Can't you just use the
If I put
vertical
my
horizon in the camera?
on a level,
Use
it
the
say,
spirit level in your camera.
what can I say? I don't trust these modern technologies.
Ah, go on. You stop.
Birgit,
Give me a bubble in a glass tube any day.
Birgit, do you not use live view on the camera?
Do I use live view?
Yeah, on the
Yes,
camera.
I do sometimes. I didn't want to do it today because we didn't know how much you'd see, and
Right.
yeah, I do. I've got a tethering cable. I
Right.
use it more for flat lays than straight on because usually I can see what I'm doing on that. But I do sometimes I use it for that, but I always use it for flat lays.
Right.
She's going to put it into
EOS
Lightroom and
something.
show you that in a moment. So you'll see what she's shooting.
No, I didn't mean. I meant live view on the back of the camera while you're kneeling down.
Oh,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
I don't know if my camera does it.
I
Yeah,
think the
mine doesn't.
7D Mark II does it.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah, it does.
it's a button with a little red
I
thing
don't
on
know.
it, a red camera.
I can never get on with
I
it.
can look at what I've shot, but if I'm shooting, I just look through the viewfinder.
I can't get on with
When
it.
we're actually physically able to meet up again, it would be really useful actually, because I need somebody to go through a few things on my Lightroom. And all those backups that my computer keeps saving for me, and I find that I've got no memory left. Here we are. So I'm heating up some
Coffee?
syrup here. I'm going to see what a pouring shot does. Now I'll just make myself drink.
It's an excuse. She just likes popcorn with syrup on it.
I'm going to need my remote here. I'm going to need a faster shutter speed now because I'm going to pour something. So this is going to be interesting. So if I go and up my shutter speed. I'm 100. Let's see what this picture is going to look like. I think I might have to increase my light.
If you've got it darker, you can always lighten it in Lightroom or Photoshop.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm shooting in RAW, so I should be able to rescue something, but we'll try and manipulate the camera. So that's a little bit more light.
The thing I find though is if you're trying to capture highlights, so little sparkles on liquid and stuff like that, if you're pushing the exposure, sometimes they just don't come out the way you want them to. So it depends on the shot. Mostly pushing the exposure in Lightroom or Photoshop works well, but when you're picking out highlights.
Usually, because I normally shoot, well, no, I don't normally, I always shoot in daylight. This is literally the only time, other than when Ray and I had a quick conflab on Sunday, I've ever shot like this.
So Birgit, has your light got a diffuser over the front of it?
Yes, it does. Yeah, so I can take that off.
Well, no, you move it closer.
I can do that as well.
Yeah, because with lights with diffusers on, the closer you have it to the subject, the softer the light is that you get.
Oh, right, yeah. I forget all these things. Just checking I've not got caught on the table. Yeah.
And when we get back to meetings, I've got a wireless remote for a Canon camera that I don't need anymore.
Oh,
I
yeah.
have to see if it works with yours.
Oh, lovely.
I don't know. I can't remember if it works with that
There we go.
version.
Right, let's see what that's doing. Not bad. With, don't think I can do that. Oh, that's exactly what I want. The only problem is I need
Okay,
to do.
what I used to do with things like that was put it on the 10-second timer and press the shutter and then quickly go round and hold it where I wanted it.
Yeah, I do that, to be honest, but this is a new one because my other one broke and I haven't checked how to do the timer on it yet. So the research is, so I'm not quite prepared, but you're right. See, Andrew's a good thinker, isn't he? I don't think my block's in quite the right place now.
He's sitting down though, it's easy for him.
No, I've done that. My first flash setup was a cable, a tripod, and lots of tissue paper. And I used to hold the tissue paper either side of what I wanted to photograph while the timer went off.
Right, here we go. Let's see what we get. Look, we go too far down it. Raise them. Is anybody bored yet?
No, but I'm thinking about going and getting some popcorn.
They always look like this.
Yeah, I think there's a lager in the fridge waiting for me after this.
Lager.
Lager and popcorn.
Who's down with me? I should have.
The fact that I've got mine trained on my subject matter is fantastic because it means I can go for a cup of tea, come back and see what but so far is nothing much. It's not very good. Yeah.
It's looking good, Paul, with the light coming from the side like that. You
Yeah.
can see that you've got some shadow on the right-hand side.
Yeah, I changed the position of the light on the plant.
Yeah, that should give you better results, I would say.
It's been superb, and I haven't been walking around. I've had time to go and get a whiskey. Yeah, it's good.
Mm.
Tell a story about popcorn while she's doing that.
I don't think you ought to.
I was
Is it
left,
rude?
no, I was left in charge of giving the kids some popcorn in the microwave, and it was a buttery type. So me not doing it before, whacked it on 5 minutes, and went up the garden, come back, the bloody thing was nearly on fire. And the white inside the popcorn, inside the microwave was yellow.
Mm-hmm.
And we couldn't get rid of the smell. We had to throw the microwave away. And it wasn't very old either. I've never cooked it since.
This thing's called instructions on the packet.
No, you've got to read that.
When it starts popping, it said 5 minutes. But I didn't realise when it starts popping, you then stop it. So I just left it, set the timer, and off I went.
He's a man, he doesn't read instructions.
No, not really.
No wonder it wasn't a solid block.
I shrank a brand new school uniform worth about 80 quid once because I didn't read the instruction. I boiled it.
I know one
Debbie
thing.
went mad.
I think other parts like you do things like that on purpose, so they don't.
No, because I have pre-planned it.
No, we wouldn't do that.
We're not bright enough.
Huh?
We're not bright enough.
I have to say, I'm not allowed to do things like that anymore.
Peter, I made a guess on the smoke photography, and my guess is that the motorcycle is you.
No.
You too. Is that you?
Yeah.
Yeah. It had to be, didn't it? I was going to vote for that one until I realised it was you, and I thought, nah.
Oh,
Yeah,
thanks.
it's a bit of a giveaway, and like I think we could all guess which pictures are Darren's as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a bit of a sod to get the bike in the garage, I have to say.
Oh, I forgot to do something. I've got the lights on. I've got the lights on in the room.
Oh yeah.
I would normally turn those off.
Yeah.
Because this is kind of daylight set. This Godox, this studio light, and of course I've got yellow lights up here. They're not daylights. So it's terrible. This, you're keeping your mind on what you're supposed to be doing and talking and that. I can't do multitasking,
It's not like you haven't rehearsed it.
Right, here we are.
Yeah. Lovely.
Okay, so let's whiz along. So we started off with, probably not going to get time to edit. See, it wasn't straight, was it? There, and then that might have been earlier actually. And then if we whiz along towards the end, so I got to pretty much, yeah, that's the beginning again, pour. Yeah, so there's the popcorn kind of like as it was still towards the end. Probably a little bit overexposed, but that's rescuable. It's not too bad. It's not too bright along that edge. It's just not very shadowy on the right. And then, so that's not bad. I've got a bit of a trickle there. Okay.
A little bit there.
That's a bit.
Yeah, I tried moving it quickly because I thought I don't really want to be boring in the middle, but I think boring in the middle is what it's going to have to be.
That's good. Because you got a little pool of it.
That's good.
Better.
All of it's
Better.
That's nice.
All right, shall I go
like
to that
that.
one and have a little?
Yeah.
Right, what should we do? So,
Straighten it up.
yeah, go to auto straighten. This is after I straightened it actually, so it's not that bad. There you go. All right, so we'll close that. I'll probably crop it later. So, but then we'll go down. I don't know about you, but I normally bang up the contrast a little bit. I go straight for this. I go straight to texture. This one, this texture button, it's only just come with my latest update. Increase the clarity, and I'd also dehaze because I know that brings the shadows in nicely. It's getting a little bit sharper now, isn't it? Yeah. Then what colours do we want? So you've got. So I don't know. I'll go to yellow actually. Let's see if we can bring up the yellow a bit more. I might take luminance down a bit. I'm probably going to go and go to the tone and go. The tone, as I understand it, if you adjust the tone, it only affects the highlights where there are highlights rather than highlights everywhere where there aren't highlights. But I don't know quite what that means. But take the lights down. That's getting a little bit better, isn't it? Increase, lower the darks, get a bit more, so we get the shadows down. Look, now that's much more to my taste. Yeah. And sharpen it. This is a very quick edit, mind you, it's all you need really. And then it's better tell it all. Yep, so it's recognized my lens. And then I will, something like this, I am definitely going to bring it in a bit like that. Because I always think that if you bring in the edges a bit darker, then your central subject just pops out a little bit more. And then I'm going to, I don't really, my hand's spoiling it, but I don't know how much I can get away with.
That's very good.
Very good, yeah. Okay,
Plus, speech is loud.
And just take that up a little bit.
Don't snort.
And then you can just see where we're failing on the trickle. It's not quite as sharp as we would have wanted.
Is that looks like a bit of depth of field, maybe?
Yeah, it's not quite there. I mean, I certainly wouldn't post that, but it was a bit of a rush job. There we go.
Lovely.
Very good.
Well done, Birgit.
Well,
You never know, there might be a better one in there because I haven't looked at them all, so might have a little play. So if I stop sharing now. There we go.
How did you do, Paul?
I thought it was very good. I mean, it made me think of when we used to go to the cinema 100 years ago.
Have you got any photos that you can process while we're talking and maybe show us at the end?
I wouldn't know how to start, but the one I'm looking at, I've tried.
All right, never mind. Don't worry about it. It's just an idea.
If one of the projects in the future happens to be a red plant with a black background, I'll be a winner.
Yeah, we'll look out for it.
Make sure there is, because you've earned the right.
That'll be it.
You joined
yeah,
in.
I moved the line. I did everything you said, and I went for a little walk.
I'm sure I'm going to get my tea.
Right, in that case,
And now Ray just set fire to the popcorn.
I'm just going to do a little bit of chat about on the projects, and then I'll do my practical. So let me share.
Why did my screen up? Skip.
Should all be able to see the the slides. Yeah. Good. So we had 46 photos from 18 members, so a little bit down on usual, and I guess that's largely because of the subject matter. It's not easy to do smoke, but the winners are, he says, third place Birgit. Well done.
Oh my goodness, thank you.
Some nice candle smoke there
Very
from your
surprised.
cakes.
It was the cakes they wanted, really, weren't they? I actually, afterwards, I noticed how I got those stripes even on the front ones. That was a happy accident on those cakes at the front.
Second place, and this is not a fix, I assure you, was me. And that's pretty much what I'm going to be shooting in a moment. So you'll see how I did it. And first place, Stuart, well done. Well done, Stuart.
That's fabulous.
Overwhelming winner in terms of the voting. So in fact, again, just a reminder, this five-star voting system is definitely spreading out the votes and making the votes much clearer than they used to be. Sometimes there wasn't much between first place and third place, but now there is quite a difference, and it makes it a much clearer indication of what you guys like and what you don't like. What I wanted to do was just throw at you a couple of thoughts. I don't expect you to make any comments tonight, although you're welcome to if you want to. But in committee, we had a bit of a chat about this, and we talk within the club, and we've always been this way, that it's all about helping each other and improving our photography, and everyone has an equal voice. There's no experts, no boss, no senior judge or anything like that within the club. But the downside to not having a competitive competition, as it were, within the project vote is that the winners get feedback, but the rest of the photos, there's nothing. You don't get anything in terms of a feedback on how well or otherwise your photo did. And rather than just sharing the scores, which I think doesn't really achieve much, your photos just kind of go into a black hole and you don't get any feedback. So we were thinking, how can we address this without turning us into a competitive club with self-appointed judges? So here's what we came up with as a suggestion. It's not definitive, it's just an idea, and I'd appreciate your feedback either now or later on email, or if you want to start a discussion on the WhatsApp group, then maybe that'd be a good way to get everyone's consensus. So here's the suggestion. What if, when you submit your project photos, you mention in the email that you would like some feedback on one or all of the photos? We'll assume that you don't want to do that unless you tell us otherwise. And then any one of us could become the nominated person to give feedback. So what we'll do is, out of all the photos where you've said, yes, I appreciate some feedback, we'll pick one. It'll be anonymous. We'll just pick one photo out of all of those, and one of us, anyone within the club, can do this. But if no one volunteers, then the committee will do it. We'll take that photo and spend no more than 5 minutes giving you constructive comments about that photo. So this isn't a, let's destroy you. This isn't, this is a pile of crap or anything like that. It's just, have you thought about this? Have you tried that? And we think that would be a way to start the conversation of getting some kind of feedback back to you and your photos. And the photo would be anonymous, but obviously after the vote's been announced, I then republish all the photos with the photographers' names. So it wouldn't be anonymous after the vote's been announced and after the feedback has been given. So again, if you don't want to live with that, then don't volunteer your photo for feedback. But as I say, it's all going to be positive feedback. It's not going to be, you're a hopeless photographer and never darken outdoors again. It won't be anything nasty. It's going to be positive and constructive, and it will be a person's view, and there's no more to it than that. It's not a definitive, it's not international judging standards, it's just the person on the day, what they thought about that photo. So the question is, what do you think about that as a suggestion? You don't have to answer now, but perhaps you give me some feedback in the WhatsApp group, or if you want to do it privately, then just drop us an email. March is winter, and although the weather is improving a bit, hopefully you took some pictures in the snow and the ice. We'll do that on the 31st with the submission date the Friday before. And just to remind you, it can be anything that's remotely wintry. You don't even have to go outside. If you get a view from your window, you can do it there, or even from your car. And a reminder what's coming up. On the 10th of March, which is our next meeting, me again, sorry, but we're going to do the 4 men who went to Iceland for a photography trip, and we're going to tell you our story. And it's exactly a year to the day when we went, and it's about time we actually told you what we did. So that should be good. And by way of an incentive to look at it, there will be videos of naked men in snow.
That's a bit sexist, isn't it?
I'm not. There were no women with us, Pete. So it's
Nice.
just I just put it out there as a little teaser. If you're interested in that kind of thing.
Anyone we know?
Wide angle.
What are you expecting, Birgit?
I'm not going to give you spoilers, but I ain't doing it. So there you are. I will not be in that video. That's all I'm going to say.
That's the pin-up gone then.
And yes, oh, Katrina, you're going in June next year. So yes, and also our speaker from last time, when she heard me say that we were going to do a talk on ice, and she's got a trip organised too, so she's going to join us
Okay.
to hear about our adventure. So yes. Okay, so it's time for my bit of photo shooting then. This could be fun. Okay then, I'm going to go and share my entire desktop because I'm going to be hopping around a little bit. So you should still see the slides, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good, but now we're going to hop around to another camera, a different camera. And the advantage of this camera is, when I pick up the right thing, is it's handheld. So what I can do is show you my setup. So I'm in the kitchen, and the camera is on a tripod, and you see the tripod there. And I've got the arm horizontal so that I can bring the camera over the table to shoot the subject. So what is the subject? Well, it's the candle you saw in the project photo. And this is exactly the setup I used. Can you still hear me okay?
Yeah.
This is exactly the setup I used when I took that photo. And it's just a candle stuck into a bit of blue tack, stuck on top of a very liquid bottle, so that I can get the height right for the camera to look at the candle. The background is just Fomex card. If I show you this bit in my hand, you'll see it's just black cardboard with matte black coating on it. And I've got this really old rusting halogen lamp shining from the side. So there's the camera, and here's the light shining sideways towards the candle. But if you look at the background, you'll see that it's casting an awful lot of light onto the background. And that means that the photo is going to have a background which is lit up, and I don't want that. So I'm using this extra bit of cardboard I've got to put in front of the light, and look at the shadow it's casting. So by putting this bit of cardboard up against the light here, yeah, it's just casting a shadow across the background so that I'm minimizing the light pollution on the background of that candle. So if I put this camera down, you'll see as I do this what I'm going to do. And I'm going to light the candle. If the matches work, they've been on and off. Oh, there we go. Okay, so candles are light. Let's make sure I've got the memory card in the camera, and that it's all focused up, which it is nicely. So the camera settings, I've got 2/50th of a second. I've got f6.3. and I'm shooting at ISO 400. I tried lots of different combinations of this. I've also turned off autofocus because I've not got the candle dead center in the picture. I've got it to one side, so autofocus would struggle to grab it. So I've manually focused onto the candle. and I'm manually controlling the camera with those settings. So what I'm going to do is I'm just literally putting my finger on the shutter release, and I'm going to lean over and blow the candle up. There you go. I just manually took 5 or 6 photos. Let me come back to, and now I'm going to take the memory card out, and I'll flip over to Lightroom. You can all see Lightroom now?
Yeah.
Good. So I'm going to stick the memory card in the card reader.
You're so much more efficient. What took me 20 minutes took you 2.
I guess
Older than you.
Yeah,
Practice.
to be fair, I actually didn't start with it all set up perfect.
No, I did. I remembered how I had it all set up when I shot
I deliberately went
the other
through the
pictures,
process.
and I left the tripod set up at the right height and everything, so I just had to wheel it.
Oh, I
in
had
there.
that. Yeah, no, it was just the settings I didn't do.
So
Blue
now
Peter,
you can see these photos are in the import menu of this. It's going to import, so let me just import them. Okay, and if we just have them bigger, yeah, that's bad. Now, so not brilliant, but before we do any more, let's do a little bit of tweaking. What we'll do is I'm going to highlight all of them, or just one of them. Now remember I said that I was using a tungsten light source, so I need to adjust the white balance. So over here in the white balance, I'm going to say tungsten. And then I'm going to highlight all of these pictures. And I'm going to come down here where it says sync settings. And you'll see that I've got everything turned off except white balance. And I'm going to say synchronize. So now what it's doing is it's applied that tungsten white balance to all the photos in one click. So let's come to this photo, and there's not a lot going on there. But what we can do is, if I go into develop, by mucking around with the exposure, we might be able to do a bit more. Now that's getting a bit better. Now, okay, I'm blowing out the exposure on the candle, but I am bringing out some of the smoke. So I'm just going to ripple down these like Birgit did, up the contrast a bit. I'm going to up the texture, up the clarity, and dehaze a little bit. And then just bring that. Now you'll see it's got rather noisy now if I go too far. So you've got to, I'm going to bring the clarity down a smidge and the texture down a smidge so that it's not too, it's still a little bit grainy, but not too bad.
Hey,
yeah.
if you went to the top where the adjustment brushes are, you know where that circle is, you could maybe apply the, that's it, yeah. So if you got the smoke in that, you could probably maybe avoid overexposing the side of that candle.
Yeah, that's fair. Let's do that so everyone can see what we're doing. We take that back down so the candle is roughly exposed, right? If I now go up to here, which is the adjustment brush, and now I can set these, and whatever I set them to, I can then paint onto the picture. And you'll notice here that the exposure is already up 2.5 stops. It's probably a bit high. Let's bring it down to a couple of stops. And let's paint. Yep. So that's one way of doing it, whilst maintaining the exposure on the other part. So of course, you know, that's probably a lot of, you notice on the background, it's dark, it's out of focus, there's no trickery required. I don't have to do any corrections on that. It's all good as I want it. And that's a combination of me lighting from the side, putting that card in to make it shadowy so that the background is not got any light in it that I don't want. And then getting my depth of field. With these settings, I've got a 50mm lens, pretty much at its minimum focal distance. I can't get any closer, and I don't have a wider lens. So that's as close as I'm going to get to the subject. And with those settings and with the 6.3 aperture and a 50mm lens, my depth of field is effectively about 1 centimeter. It ain't much at all, which is why this smoke is kind of milky, because it's not in the focal plane, which is what the candle is. So in this case, I quite like the milky element of the smoke. But if you look at something like Stuart's winning project photo, I noticed that, let me get rid of that crap. I noticed that he had his smoke pin sharp. So he clearly had a really good depth of field when he took that picture.
Well, what I had flash, you see, rather than the little light. And the little light that you had, I just had that so I could focus on the smoke. And then I had a trigger on the camera that triggered the flash. And
Right.
with the flash, I had 2 blinkers, 2 pieces of card that directed it straight onto the smoke.
Yep.
And that's how it kept it in a straight line onto the smoke, rather than the flash going everywhere.
Perfect. So very similar. You focused the light where you wanted it.
Yeah, just 2 pieces of card with a piece of elastic band attached to the flash.
Yeah.
And holding it there, and it gives a straight beam of light straight onto the smoke.
Oh, very effective. What I
Yeah,
liked
now-
about it was the smoke just completely filled the frame, but
Yeah.
it wasn't a cloud of smoke. It was all you had a lovely floaty pattern there as well.
Yeah, well, that's it.
Made it very aesthetic.
The flash picks the pattern out a lot more too. But the thing with you, you did in Lightroom, I did on Photoshop, you know.
Yeah.
Just adjusted a little bit of the settings, a little bit of clarity and a bit of brightness and.
Stuart, did you use a speed light?
Yes, I had. I've got an speed light 700, and you have to put it on at half power, not full power.
Right. Yes.
And then you put that with your manual setting with your camera, so that your triggers the flash, you know, when you fire. And I've got it all in darkness, and all we've got is a little light to give you a focus on your. I had an incense stick on a piece of wood, and then when you put it out, the smoke goes up more. But I had them burning too, you know, so that was.
Yeah, I found with the candles, you if you do it too long on one candle, so you light it, blow it out, light it, blow it out. If you do too many of those cycles on one candle, the smoke gets less and less and less. So I've got a bag full of candles, birthday candles here, and I was just rotating them around to get the most smoke in the picture. So this picture needs to be cropped, so we can do that obviously in Lightroom. Bring that down roughly to the rule of thirds.
Well, it's the same as I did. I cropped it.
Yeah. And you know that gives you know a reasonable image. So I mean the point of doing that was just really to show you how you can do it, and it's not that complicated. It just takes a little bit of practice. And yeah, we were all using bits and bobs that we had to hand. There's no specialist equipment there. Although one could argue if you're not a photographer, then it's all specialist equipment, camera, tripod, Photoshop. Like
Black cardboard.
Yeah.
Black cardboard, got it from Amazon, cost a couple of quid, and there were 10 sheets, A0 sheets, huge sheets of this stuff for a couple of quid. And I cut them up and used them as light shapers and all sorts of things.
Black t-shirt would do the same thing, doesn't it?
Say again?
I said a black t-shirt would do the same thing. Just
yeah, as long as you're careful with creases.
Oh yeah.
Got to be careful with creases. Any material, you just got to be careful about creases. But it could be a dark wall. And again, if you get your light correct, as you saw with the photo I just took, you're not lighting the background and you're concentrating on exposing just the, if you look at the Lightroom picture that I just showed you, we go back to Lightroom there, I just painted a 2-stop exposure increase on this area. It didn't light the background. I wasn't carefully going around the edge. I just randomly painted.
Yeah.
But because the background is so black and underexposed, you can't see that in the picture. So if you do your lighting correctly, you can use a bit of dark wallpaper, a dark bit of wood even. There are lots of different things you can use as your background.
If you put your clipping indicators on in Lightroom, would that background be totally blown out? Totally black?
It may well be.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Ooh. So there's nothing there but black, is there?
Nothing there but black, yeah. And which is why when I increased the exposure
didn't make any
of that area, you got nothing. Yeah. So so yeah, anyway, you know, it's a bit of fun. Try and do it live. As you know, what both Birgit and I had a rehearsal, we pre-planned this, so you know, we are kind of slightly misrepresenting how easy it is. This is one I prepared earlier, but
I don't want anybody to know that.
But by and large, you know,
it's mainly to make sure that the technical side worked, wasn't it?
Yeah, and look, for me, the biggest element was getting the exposure right. I did spend probably a couple of hours taking lots of test shots to get the exposure right. The combination of depth of field, aperture, shutter speed, all that stuff, just to what I wanted to get a decent image in the way that I wanted to do it. So I did spend a bit of time doing that. And of course, you know, just now I didn't have to think about any of that. I just had the camera preset. So yeah, slightly misrepresenting how easy it is. But I mean, that's the joy of doing it, is experimenting with these things to see what you can get out of it. So, I mean, Katrina, I know you struggled with the smoke pictures. Do you want to share what your troubles were?
I've figured it out now. I already had the settings. I've got the settings right because I've wrote them all down on my little scrappy bit of paper. But you can see that in my office wall. So I can't go against that. No. So I tried it with a t-shirt because that was the only dark thing I had, but that came out wrong. I hadn't got any black card or anything, but now I've seen the way you've done the lights. That's exactly where I was going wrong.
Okay.
Because I've got this light here because of I'm in the office. You can see when I'm moving it what's happening, because otherwise I'm too dark in here. So I've got that light to use, but I had it placed wrong.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's, I mean, Birgit went through that very well with her popcorn, and you could see certainly with the light pollution on the background that I was showing you. Those are the kind of things you need to look out for. And the light source, I mean, you can use flashlight like Stuart did. You can use an old scrappy light from the garage like I did, or something a bit more professional like Birgit. It doesn't really matter what you use as long as you know how to control it. And certainly for me with the desktop lamp, I had to worry about white balance, because if you look at this image, I kind of skipped over that a little bit, but this is what the image looks like now, but if I put it back to our shot, you'll see that I've got a nice orange cast on the smoke from that tungsten light. So by changing the white balance to tungsten, I'm getting back to a more white light. Although interestingly, that adjustment brush I used put kind of a blue haze on it. That's because this temperature. There you go. Let me reset.
Just double click on the temperature.
Yeah, I had the temperature very low. So let me put the temperature back to 0.
All right, yeah.
And the exposure at 2. So I had the temperature low, so that's why it was quite blue. So if I now paint on here,
turn it down a bit,
and then do my tungsten, yeah, that's a more neutral white. So now I can get my so that's a more neutral color in the smoke, because in the adjustment brush I had the temperature turned down, so that was giving it a blue tint.
So Ray,
yeah,
if you want to get everything black in that, if you use the black slider at the bottom,
yeah,
and hold the Alt key while you're doing it, it will show you. Hold the Alt key while you're doing it. It will show you what's, and then you can make it darker to darken. So if your black's not completely black, you can just kill it a little bit, and you can actually see what you're doing if you hold the Alt key.
Yeah, that's nice.
And you can do the same with the whites if you want to boost them a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, there's
see
nothing,
white, there's no whites there.
The picture at all. Look at that. Yeah. So anyway, it was just a bit of fun, quick hack, see what we could get out of it, and hopefully, a bit of amusement, maybe a little bit of inspiration for you to have a go at something. Doesn't have to be popcorn, doesn't have to be smoke, it could be anything. Could be your kids' toys or grandkids' toys. I did it. I did it with Lego the other day, because I get involved in the Lego robot competitions, and they sent me a little Lego kit and said, make what you like from it. It was a sort of creative thing. So I made something, and then I thought, I'll photograph it, and then I could have it as the background on the Zoom call. So that's what I did. So I used very similar techniques that you saw just now to photograph a little bit of Lego. So you can do it with anything, really.
A little thing I discovered the other day doing a little bit of still life is we've got our cooker's got a glass top on it, and I just laid some black cardboard on the hobs and then put the glass lid back down, and it made some beautiful reflections rather than having to buy something.
Nice.
It was a blue light from the fire brigade.
Yeah.
They lost you, didn't hear any of it.
No.
Then tried to reconnect, never got you.
This is all right. Yes, and I think like with black card, you know, I didn't have any in the house, and yet I was trying to do a photographic thing and needed a black background. I'm sick of this. I haven't got what I need in the house, so I fixed it. And I think it would be worth a couple of quid for you to get some black cardboard, or what I'm using is foam. It's called Foamex. It's black paper with foam in between, and therefore it's about 5 millimeters thick, but it's quite stiff. It's quite rigid. So when you're using it for backgrounds, as you could see here, I've got it up against the wall. Let me just flip to the to that again.
I mean, the black card you can get out of Smith, it's not a problem.
Well, you have to be careful because, you know, they call it black, and maybe it is and maybe it isn't. But this stuff is, if you look on the edge here, you'll see it's like black paper on front and back with foam in between. It's quite stiff, and I've got it just leaning up against the wall of the kitchen here. And I've got another piece on the floor, on the table, so that I'm not getting any reflections from the bottom. The other thing to say is I've got this card here at a slight inclination, so it's not dead vertical, it's leaning back. Two reasons: one, obviously, so it doesn't keep falling over, but also it means that the light is not going to reflect back at the camera. If anything, the light is going to bounce up to the ceiling. So by using this stuff, which is pretty stiff, you can do things like that. If you've got card that's a bit floppy, or worse still, paper, then you know you can't really use it for that purpose. It's so yeah, it's called Foamex.
£8 for a A3 sheet on Amazon.
There you go. So I quite I bought a box of, I think it was 10 sheets or something, and it was like 15 quid or something, and that was a couple of years ago, and I've still got 8 sheets left or something, so it's going to last for ages. It's also useful for photo exhibitions as well. I did at a family party. I stuck a load of pictures of family members on a large sheet of it, and just leant it up against a wall on the table in the corner of the room for the family party, and it was brilliant. People were able to look at the family pictures. So you know, you don't have to spend a lot of money to do something like that. Just stick it up in and blue tack it to the wall, anything like that. And I'm not on commission for Foamex, obviously. Okay, guys. Well, I've got nothing more to say unless you have.
Just say thank you to Birgit for putting up her.
You know, I will say thanks to Birgit because I kind of arm locked her into doing this.
Totally. Yeah, totally.
And as a member rather than a committee member, I thought it was nice that a member had a go at something, rather than us committee members do it all the time. So if any of you guys fancy
the invoices in the post.
Obviously, as we get,
I think you'll be sending claims. I don't know about anybody sending invoices.
Once we're out of lockdown, a lot of these things will be a lot easier, but you know, we just got to try and do what we can do. Regarding lockdown, committee is discussing the latest announcements shortly to see what our response will be, but hopefully if we can get together in groups of 6 at some stage, then maybe we can do some outdoor photographic trips like we did before. So that might be nice. But we'll get together as a group to talk through our options there and plan accordingly. So next meeting, you got me rabbiting on again, but at least there'll be 3 others talking too, and we'll take you through the Iceland bit. Okay, thanks everyone.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.